Hi everyone, my name is Ymir, also known as Almond M&Ms. Welcome to A Stitch with Me. Today is a rainy, gloomy day, so I figured it would be an awesome time to sit here and stitch with you all, or you stitch with me. I am currently working on the Zimmerman coverlet. I started this about 2 days ago, so I don't have much progress. As you can see here, it's not much, um, but it is something. So I truly believe that I think I'm gonna be binge stitching this. I just finished a Quaker sampler from Modern Folk Embroidery called The Secret Sky, and I was super obsessed with it. I practically binge stitched it, so I think this is what I'm gonna do with this one as well. I am currently stitching it on a 40 count mallow linen. Yes, so I'm currently working on that with this. I am stitching it with a oh, Veriswa, the soy surfine. Pardon the way I am what's the word, pronouncing it, because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. It is number 2384. If you can see 2384, hopefully you can see and it focuses better, but it is 2384. And I'm also using a Madeira floss. It's an embroidery thread. I purchased this in gold and silver as well, and I'm literally loving it. It's pretty much the same thickness as the Surfine, or probably the 103, 103. So I'm mixing it a little bit. So without further ado, I already started stitching a little bit earlier while I was doing a few things, so I'm gonna do the same thing now. So far for today I have 57 stitches going. So let's see, let's just play a little bit, and yeah, so I hope you enjoy. Grab a coffee, grab a tea, and stitch with me. So thank you. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do an outro at the ending. I'm also waiting for someone to come to the house and check something out that's broken, but let's just get with the flow and stitch for a little bit. So get comfy and stitch with me. Thank you. So I decided to flip over and do the rest of this video as a voiceover because while I was stitching, I realized that I needed to frog about 6 lines, so I ended up stopping talking but still recording. So I figured I would just come in and talk a little bit because that's what we're all here for. I am creating these Stitch with Me's in Spanish and in English. I was doing a lot of them in Spanish. When I say a lot, I don't mean like hundreds of them. I only mean like about 3 or 4. But I was doing them primarily in Spanish, and I asked everyone how did they feel and did they want me to do them in English. And I know at least one person, possibly 2 people, requested Stitch with Me's in English. So definitely this one is for you, Nicole, from Diamond Painting with Nicole. I listened, your wish was my command, and I am here to stitch with you and everyone else. But yeah, so as we all already know, the Zimmerman coverlet has been the talk of the town. I'm so happy to be able to stitch this because I just feel super honored to be part of this project. Not only my own project where I'm doing it, but also just kind of the story behind the Zimmerman coverlet. So if you're not aware of it, the story comes from Ellen Reed with a partnership with Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery. Ellen had posted an image of a coverlet that's been with her family for many years, and I'm guessing Jacob saw it. Ellen can tell the story way much better than I can. I'm just giving you a summary. But I'm guessing Jacob saw it, and he's like, can I, do you mind if I chart it, or, whichever way the conversation went. Long story short, he came back a few hours later with this amazingness to share with all of us. And with that being said, the proceeds, 25% of the sales of each chart that's sold goes to the Red Door. It's a Toronto-based charity, and I believe they help victims of like domestic abuse, homeless, and things like that. So if you really want to check it out, go onto the Red Doors website, which is reddoorshelter.ca, and read a little bit more about them, and just see where all of our stitching efforts are going to. But yeah, so for me, like, that's one great thing that I love: charity and giving back, and being part of a community. So that's one main thing why I did it. But also, it's a beautiful pattern. The pattern is charted one repeat, but the image of the pattern is repeated 3 times. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe the chart is like 146, 45 crosses by 280. I might be 1 or 2 crosses off, but it's a pretty like hefty one. I believe it's like 14,000 stitches. If my math doesn't do me wrong, I believe it's going to be 14 times 3, because I do plan on repeating the pattern, because why not? Why not repeat it? So I think it's going to look cool with this 40 count. See, here is where I realized that I had to frog. And frogging 40 count 1/1 is not cute. So for myself personally, I like to triple count, double count, like many counts, to make sure that I don't miss a step along the way. But I also like to I've heard the term chicken margin, or something with chicken. So I like to kind of hop around. I leave some of my threads still hanging on the piece, and I'll just take the opportunity to just kind of like hop around and start a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, a little bit above, a little bit below, and start meeting. Because God forbid I did make a mistake, at least it's one of the mistakes on one of the 4 corners, versus like me having to pull a gigantic motif, especially on a fabric like this, which is 40 count. So usually when I have to frog, it's because I have to frog, but also it's not a lot compared to having to like refrog a full motif. If you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen that I have had to frog a full motif, but that's mainly because I wasn't double checking and I wasn't counting. So that's one big tip of advice that I say from my end. I'm no expert, but that's kind of like my strategy while working towards these projects like this. And I mean, it's been working for me, so I'm gonna continue doing the same thing, and I'll share it with you guys, so why not? I know a lot of people have asked, and when I say a lot, it's not a lot, it's probably like 3 or 4 people have asked me about how did I start stitching 1/1 and these like high counts. So for me, I love small things. I love small bags, small whatever, like even my handwriting is small. So it fits like even like smaller projects. Like I like small things. My notebooks are like those tiny pocket-sized notebooks, and I mean that's what I used in college as well. So all of my notes are on passport size notebooks. So with that being said, I jumped into this whole cross stitching situation again very recently. Like many of us who are newbies, we started off possibly during the quarantine or a little bit before, the whole world blew up. For me, I kind of fell in that same category. But throughout the years I took a break. And when I took the break, I came back and it was just like you had so many options between Aida, linen, the this, the that, the even weave, the uneven weave, the 40 count, 30 counts, 18 counts, 14, like so many different options. So for myself, I do remember even as like a young kid stitching with like the big plastic canvases and the gigantic needle. But coming back into this, like, it's very overwhelming, especially when you haven't done it in a while or if this is your first time having a go. So I purchased, I don't even know, like, I feel like I purchased a small count because I was like, oh, I like the whole small, but I really didn't process the comparison of like, okay, your project is going to be itty bitty. So that was kind of like one thing, but also just growing up and learning off of my grandmother and things like that, I always knew that I had to split my threads. So for me, I was just like, okay, I'll just split one thread and, just really do it that way. So it really wasn't an issue for me. Especially because I'm coming from a jewelry background and a textiles background. So I'm very used to stitching small, like hand stitching and just kind of like really with smaller things. So although I ordered a random size fabric, I was able to stitch with it. And then when I wanted to replace that fabric and continue getting more replacements and did a little bit more research, I was just kind of like, okay, like these holes are fair enough where I may need it smaller. Let me just go smaller, or go bigger. So that's kind of like how I fell into it. I do feel like if I would have started with like 2 strands or 3 strands, possibly I would be saying a different story today. But, I think it was just like a match made in heaven. And I really don't think I'll be able to go back to do anything aside from 1/1 on high counts because I plan on stitching forever until, you know, it's my time to go. And all of my projects, I do want to display it on my walls and things like that. So I do want to maximize my space and be frugal. What is it? Frugal with sharing all of the crafts and the arts that I'll be creating. So why not just go tiny? And also, I just want to create something kind of like an archive of things. And like when I first got into art school, my biggest pet peeve was, having to walk around with this gigantic portfolio of like all of your art and things like that. So tiny is the way to go for me. I know it's not for a lot of people, but for me, it definitely is the right fit. And I love sharing this with you all. And, hopefully you like what I'm doing, you like what I'm stitching, and you're enjoying it as well. Because, for me, I did find it a little bit difficult when I was first starting to find 1/1 stitching in hand and things like that. Like, I watched a lot of Jan Hicks videos and stuff like that, but a lot of us stitch differently. And although she does stitch in hand, I stitch in hand, I just kind of reverted into doing the stick and poke method rather than the sewing method. But, it works for me. And honestly, I think that should be the same for each and every single one of you. It's whatever works for you, whatever brings you joy and excitement to be able to finish these projects or even just start and continue these projects. And, just try not to look at what the other person is doing, because it doesn't matter on how people are doing things. Is what really matters. And if it does, is that you get there, whether you get there crawling, hopping, running, or whatever the case may be. At least you got there. And there may be, for me, a completely finished object that I'm framing, but there for the next person would be halfway through. So it's just cross stitch. It's a gift that a lot of us were able to get passed down to us. I was fortunate enough to at least be able to get introduced to this before my grandmother passed, which, she passed recently within the past 3 weeks. But I was fortunate enough to do that. Although I didn't have a lot of the exposure with these different types of textiles and the fabrics and the threads and things like that, at least I was able to get the basics. And, that's something that I'm super grateful for. So hopefully, this kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to why my stuff is so microscopic. Hopefully I'm not killing everyone else's eyes, and possibly I'm just killing my own while stitching and showing you all of the different things that I'm working on. But yeah, I'm super grateful for that. Aside from that, I actually wanted to chit chat with you a little bit about just kind of getting feedback on, like, what do you guys do when it comes down to how do you display your projects? Like, especially for some of us that have more than one completed project, because I just completed my first one, so I'm super excited about that. But how do you do it? Like, I know some of my peers that I see, they rotate based on seasons and things like that. But I know I saw Jules from Long Dog Samplers. She had posted an image a few months ago or a few weeks ago of her walls, and they were just filled with cross stitch, and they were all framed. And I was just like, I want to be like you when I grow up. But like, do you have that too at home, or do you kind of like rotate as well? I know here in New York City, sometimes wall real estate doesn't is very hard to come by. So I know that might possibly be an option here, but I'm curious to see, what do you have and what do you do with your items? So since I'm renting, I'm gonna insert and come in and speak about a little bit what I'm doing here. It is my first time using the Au Ver Soie flosses, and I do recommend to at least have a little bit of the Thread Magic or some type of thread conditioner, so you can be able to avoid the kinks. I don't know if you noticed, while I was stitching, I did have like 1 or 2 knots that I had to kind of like stop and go back and fix. So I do recommend using that, but also having shorter strands. I know it takes a little bit longer to, end the thread and restarting the thread, but it really does help, especially with the knots, because we all hate those knots. So I recommend it. If you don't have wax or conditioner, definitely use shorter strands. For myself, on this project, I'm being very naughty, and I'm not pin stitching or anything like that, but I do know I need to start doing that and stop playing games, as people say, and really realistically, keep my bags clean. But especially with smaller stitches, you can kind of fudge that, and you don't have to be so perfect, because you really can't see it in the back. You really can't see it because it's so tiny, so it really hides a lot of that. But I highly do recommend using some type of thread conditioner, wax, or whatever the case may be, to really help you glide through with the threads. Particularly for myself, I do it here and there, but with these two threads that I'm using today, I definitely did need to stop and pull it out and start using it a little bit. So feel free to check that one out. And yeah, I mean, I still got a knot here, but you know, it's way better than getting those gigantic ones. But shorter strands are the ones that actually help. But yeah, so that's pretty much it as far as that. Going back to our chit chat about art and walls, I know there's also different framers that a lot of people use. I'm in New York, so I'm not sure if I would have to research. I mean, I'm pretty sure we would have framers here, but we do have framers here, but I'm just a little bit weary or hesitant to take it to a framer here that is not a textiles framer, or it's not a framer for needle crafts, cross stitching, needlepoint, etc., because I really don't want my pieces to get damaged. So if you have any recommendations on that one, definitely scooch it over to me, because I'm interested in doing it. I think for myself personally, I may wait until after Christmas because I'm not in a rush. We're in the process of moving and all those good things. So honestly, it wouldn't make sense until after Christmas. And I think it would be a little bit helpful as well for all of the framers out there. I'm pretty sure a lot of the framers within the community are super swamped with work, especially those that are those that would be due before the holidays, because I know a lot of people are framing things. So yeah, I mean, as you can see here, I'm just chugging along. And you know, I think I previously mentioned I do like to stop my threads and then continue on to the other one. So that's what I'm doing here. I stopped the red one and I started playing a little bit with the gold. And you know, now I can go back in and continue the red and make sure that I'm on the correct spot. And hopefully I meet up with everything and everything aligns. So I think that this sampler is going to be fun for me to stitch because it's tiny, but also every single stitch that I'm putting, I'm thinking of what the cause is and what the cause was for. So yeah, I mean, hopefully I can be able to use one spool of the red thread. I did purchase 3, but I'm curious to see how many spools I'll be able to use. My last Modern Folk project that I just finished, you can check it out on my previous video, or you can check it out on my Instagram at Almond M&Ms. I used 3 skeins and a half, or 3 skeins and change of DMC 310. That being said, I did, as I mentioned, I did have to frog a little bit, so I feel like I would have been able to save some floss there. But you know, I think with four was, I was able to do everything I needed to do with 4 skeins. So hopefully I can do the same here, because this is way much more yardage. I know the DMC is what, 8 yards and change. This one is 100 meters, so it should not, I shouldn't use it all up, but you know, I'll be using some, so hopefully I'll have it. And I mean, I don't regret buying 3 spools of 100 meters, because you know, specifically with reds, you should always have a red sampler, and that's why I kind of was like, I need to do this in red because I don't have a red sampler going. So I think it was time to do that. So I'm excited to show you guys my progress throughout the whole way, and just hearing your stories about what you're doing with Ellen's and Jacob's piece. and hopefully, you have a great spot for it ready to go in your heart or even on your wall or somewhere in your house, to be able to display it, because it's an awesome piece to have going. I don't want to put a deadline on this for myself, but based on the amount of time that I took for the previous Quaker that I did, I started it September 3rd and finished it a little bit before the 16th of October. So it took me a little bit over a month with breaks in between. So for this one, I'm not sure how much time I'm gonna give myself. However, I think what I'm gonna do is make sure that I stitch every single day, which will fall into, I think, for myself for next year, or even from now moving forward, I want to stitch every day, but I also want to keep track of how many stitches I've done in a year. I'm interested in seeing that. So hopefully, maybe, I don't know, I need to, like, I brought this up in my floss tube video before. It's very preliminary, so I need to come up with a concept and kind of I don't know, flesh it out. So this is just an idea that I'm throwing out there. I don't know, making like a stitch bank or something, a stitch drive. I don't know, but just this is just me spitting ideas up in the air, and hopefully something sticks. But I definitely would. I'm curious to see how many stitches I would be able to complete in a year, or I don't know, in a certain amount of time. I know a year is a long commitment, but why not commit for a good cause? So I'm gonna definitely be looking into that and see what happens. That being said, I think I'm gonna have to get another tally counter to have it, just in case for emergencies, because I don't wanna, break it and then be stuck in the air not having another tally counter. So I may do that, and possibly, I think, this is one of my favorite stitching accessories at this point. Well, stitching slash non-stitching, because it is for like a knitting crochet situation, but I'm using it for cross stitch purposes. But I do think that moving forward, if you do get a gift from me, or I don't know, whenever I start doing giveaways, I don't know when's the appropriate time to do that, you will most likely be getting a Susan Bates tally counter from me, because I need to plant seeds and share the obsession that I have, and why not, So be aware. If you get a gift from me moving forward, you will most likely get this in your box, and hopefully you can see the essentialness that I saw while I was stitching it. I found it halfway through my project, for my Quaker sampler, my A Secret Sky, but it kind of did help me kind of orient myself and see where I was at. And it does help specifically for those projects that I don't have Pattern Keeper, but also for those projects that you can't even use on Pattern Keeper. So it kind of like gives you an idea, but then for myself, it keeps me on track on how many stitches I've done or how many stitches I need to do to make sure that I'm meeting my daily goal. So yeah, I mean, it's fun. Why not? Like, I need to share it with y'all. But yeah. So I'm actually a little bit curious to see how long I can last with this big wob of fabric. I mean, like, that's the elephant in the room. Let's be realistic. Let's see how long I can last with this big wob of fabric without having to cut it down. I tend to not like to cut down my fabric until the very end, or until I can't handle it anymore. So I'm interested in seeing how long can I last with this gigantic wob of fabric. Usually it's easy for me to stitch on the corners because I'm a lefty, and I can just kind of like really scooch in and hold it that way. but it's going to be interesting to see. So we'll see what happens, and if I do end up cutting it down, I know I have a fabric for ages, for a long time, and for many more projects to come. So I'm excited about that. I actually just purchased another 40 count even weave fabric. So I think 40 count is about to be my sweet spot. So you're gonna get a lot of 40 count what's the word, like I'm gonna fill your feed with 40 count fabrics, so be ready on that. But yeah, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen. Usually what I like to do, because my sewing machine is actually in boxes packed up, and I don't plan on reopening those boxes until we move into our new place. I Usually what I like to do, as you can see here, I have a little bit of tape there, but that tape is because the excess threads from the serger stitching, that's how I got the fabric from the edges being marrowed. It was like kind of hanging, so I decided to tape it. But I kind of use that same type of tape. It's washi tape, so I love washi tape. I'm very plain when it comes down to a lot of things, but I think when it comes down to washi tape, I like to express myself, and I cover my edges of my stitching with washi tape. So usually when I have to cut my fabric, that's when I start embellishing the edges, or if the fabric was already cut, I embellish the edges as I go. So I think that's also a good tip if anyone is interested as well. I know we use a lot of masking tape within the community and things like that, or painter, not masking tape. Is it masking tape or duct tape? It might be masking tape. I haven't used that type of tape in a while, but we use that a lot in painter's tape. But why not experience the fun and take advantage of all the pretty colors that are out there and use some washi tape to cover your edges, and show a little bit of your personality, because all of this is not that serious, like we're here to have fun and enjoy, so why not? I'm almost done with this neon yellow tape, which I'm kind of sad because it's been with me through quite a few projects. I have currently, I want to say I have like 7 projects going. Everything has been put on hold until I finished that Quaker sampler, and now I'm starting this one. So who knows when I'm gonna touch those projects, but the tape was around for a while, so I do have another tape that I'm gonna use. It has like pumpkins. It's very fall-esque, so I do hope that I can use it this season, if I cut this fabric. But I do hope that I can be able to use it and express myself a little bit that way. But yeah, I actually wanted to talk about a little bit about my whips and my rationale as to how and why and whatever, all the goodies on my whips. So for me, my rationale, I currently have, now with this one, I have 9 whips going. One of them, it was a start and a restart, and I'm probably gonna have to restart it again because I'm not happy with the fabric. But actively, I'll say that I have 9 just to be fair, and I'll include the one that I'm gonna scrap and start over again. So for myself, for my sanity, I know that we have so much goodies out there, and I mean, I want to stitch it all, but I don't want to fall into a situation where I have so many whips that I get overwhelmed. And I mean, I love seeing a lot of the whip parades and things like that that many of us share. I mean, I've seen 50s, like above 50s, 100s, 90s. So no shade or anything like that, but for me, I want to have a lot of work that I want to start displaying. So just to minimize my squirrelness and going deeper into actually finishing things and being able to like show it, I decided to have 12 active whips, and that would include 2 sowels. You know, like I currently have like my peppermint purple sow, and then I would count my Save the Stitches sow, but when I say a sow, it would be for that year. That I know if I start in January or start in X amount of time, I'm gonna be done within like, you know, 12 months or 6 months or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like I think I'm gonna keep it that way just so I can get things done and out of the way and be able to crank out more content and have more things done by a shorter period of a short amount of time. I mean, if I get carried away, if you guys let me, I would be the whip queen. I'll have like 200 ongoing whips, and I mean, all of that it's possible with me, but you know, we're not trying to do that. But yeah, I'm guessing I'm gonna wrap it up here. I stopped stitching. I'm gonna wrap it up here. It's been great chit-chatting with you all. Let me know if you guys want me to touch on specific topics and things like that. But this is where I'm at. I have a little bit of the gold in. You can see the red peeking in a little bit. So yeah, this is where I'm at. That's what it looks like currently. And what I need to start doing is start posting it and hashtagging it, because I mean, that's what the hashtag is there for. So hopefully we'll chit chat later. Until next time, happy stitching and thank you for joining me. Have a good one. Bye.